After 35, 40 years old, there is an adaptation towards the inner life, finding one's own meaning of life. But nowadays, even that becomes sometimes urgent with young people. We are so crushed by the mass-mindedness of our civilizations. Everybody feels superfluous. Everybody feels if I would be removed to the cemetery, that would change nothing.
The soul calls for you to find it again, to redeem it from the neglect and abuse it had suffered for many years. The demand of society, of the zeitgeist, the spirit of the time, is seen for what it is, a machine that mass produces not individuals, but costumes that serve their self-propagation.
I'd like you to interpret a dream now in which the star is the central image. It's the most ancient dream in the history of mankind, the dream of Gilgamesh, king of the ancient walled city of Uruk. Gilgamesh was a powerful leader, and they felt his dream was important enough to be inscribed in stone. Here's the dream. In the middle of the night, I walked proudly up and down among my people. There were stars in the sky. Suddenly, one of the stars of the sky god Anu fell upon me. I tried to lift it, but it was too heavy for me. All Uruk assembled around this star, and the people kissed its feet. Can such an ancient dream have meaning for us today?
This dream is about 4,600 years old, and still we can find modern parallels. The language of the unconscious has changed much less than the language of human consciousness has. So if we interpret this dream from a modern standpoint, we could say that up till the moment where the star fell upon Gilgamesh, he fulfilled a collective role of the king. He was the hero and the king. He probably was a very ambitious man. He made a big career. He's the typical man who follows up ambitiously and successfully a collective pattern. Nowadays he would be a great politician or a movie star or somebody, a man who has followed up certain collective alleys and reached a goal. Such a person, looked at from within, is generally very not individual. He is fulfilling a collective role, a role of power, reacting in a very collective way. The star, on the contrary, represents the uniqueness, because every soul has one star in heaven. And we can say that up till now, Gilgamesh, with all his collective power achievements, has not yet done anything unique. On the contrary, he has only filled out a typical pattern of the hero king. And now, presumably about in the middle of life, because that's when the most frequently it occurs, something changes. While he's walking around the people, so to speak, proudly of his own power position, collective power position, from the sky falls a star on his back and turns to be a very heavy load. That is the moment where the unique destiny befalls him, literally falls upon his back. That means from now on one's back one carries a load, and that means he has now, just as Christ had to carry his cross, he has now to carry, like his cross, the burden of having to become himself, to become the unique, chosen individual he was meant to be, and which he had avoided by being an ambitious collective man up till now. And that proves not to be a glorious call, but to be a heavy burden to him. Now, the star means also the immortal soul of man, the eternal. For instance, in Egypt, that part which survives after death freely is the bar soul, which is drawn as a star, the eternal kernel of the human psyche, and has always represented that, the unique, eternal man within us. And so he has now to follow his unique destiny instead of fulfilling a collective role. But the people kiss the star's feet They prostrate themselves before the stars, so that it means the real greatness is probably Gilgamesh up till the star fell upon him also thought he was a great man. He was a king, he was a hero, he was the fortress of his people. And now he has to see not he is not much. What the people worship is that star stone, that greater thing in him. So that in that dream there is also a little teaching for Gilgamesh. Don't take all the honor people give you for yourself. Don't lap up the compliments they give you for yourself. It is that star upon you, and that is your heaviest load, your necessity to become a unique individual. That's what they worship in you, not you. And so from then on, Gilgamesh becomes the servant of his unique, heroic task, the search for immortality.
Our conscious life seems to go through definite stages of development, childhood, adolescence, etc. Do dreams show a parallel development?
There is an essential difference between the dreams of very young people and of aging people. And in the middle of life, there is a transition stage where it's mixed up. But you can say that in general, in very young people, the dreams try to help them to adapt to life. There's an outward moving towards adaptation of life to fulfill the love life, the personal ambition, the ego identity, and all these goals of the first half of life. And then the more people are aging after 35, 40 years old, there is an adaptation towards the inner life, finding one's own meaning of life. But nowadays, even that becomes sometimes urgent with young people. We are so crushed by the mass-mindedness of our civilizations. Everybody feels superfluous. Everybody feels if I would be removed to the cemetery, that would change nothing in the whole reality. Mankind would just teem on this planet, and there would be just one less who eats the food, and that would be really a blessing. So the mass-mindedness and our whole situation crushes us and makes us feel superfluous and unimportant. In our professional life, we can always be replaced by 20 others who want the same post. There's a bustling around about having the same position. And that has a very destructive effect on modern man. Either he compensates it by becoming ambitious and megalomaniac and wanting to be the top dog to at least achieve something, or he feels completely crushed and superfluous, and there's a kind of sneaky depression coming up in him. And that sneaky depression you find, for instance, nowadays in many young people. They are kind of in a hidden way deeply depressed and discouraged. They don't believe in their own life and in the meaning of their own existence. Now all the dreams center around pointing out to the individual the unique meaning of its unique life. And that is perhaps the most important aspect of dream life. It is as if you can say in a forest there are 2,000 trees, but if you look at it closer and accurately, every tree is a personality. Not two trees are the same. They are all personalities. And nature becomes real or fulfills its patterns in unique, individuated beings. That's why statistical thinking is so detrimental, so harmful. We say in this heap there are stones of 1 kilo of weight, but if you look at the stone heap itself, there's not one stone which is 1 kilo. One is 2 kilos and one is 1.5 kilo and so on. And we have to learn again to look at the uniqueness of the real thing. Reality consists of enormous amount of unique beings. And dreams help us to find the unique pattern of our life. That's why one of the most frequent complaints in modern psychological practice is that people say, my life has no meaning. And they shrug their shoulders, they say, my life has no meaning. What for? What am I there for? What's the use of it? I could just as well not exist. And there the dream are a unique help to point out what the unconscious wants of that person, namely what it wants that person to become. And that's often very surprising. I try sometimes to guess when some people comes to me. They say, what will come out of them? Is that a creative problem, or will that girl who is so unhappily in love get her Jack or John, or will, and so on. I never guess right. It's always a complete surprise what comes out of it. But after the event, you say, that is now uniquely the solution for that person. That's not a collective solution. That's why we feel sometimes very discouraged in publishing case material, because people think, that's the solution of a depressive problem, or that's the solution of an unhappy marriage problem, or so on. It isn't. It is only the solution for that person, of that case, and in another case it's different. That's why it's even dangerous to publish case material, in a way, because people identify and think it's their solution, and it's not their solution. It's that other person's solution. It's every time surprising and unique, and that makes the work on dreams so exciting, because it never repeats. And you can never guess. It's always a creative answer of nature.
When the collective image of success loses its power over you, either because you've achieved it and found out how empty, impersonal, and unauthentic it is to your unique self, or because you've come to this conclusion by observing others and the archetypal pattern that it expresses, you lose interest in appearance, the role, and the facade of a successful personality and a successful life. The soul calls for you to find it again, to redeem it from the neglect and abuse it had suffered for many years. The demand of society, of the zeitgeist, the spirit of the time, is seen for what it is, a machine that mass produces not individuals, but costumes that serve their self-propagation. An inner demand starts to speak. An inner voice declares a new way of being that needs to be birthed with sacrifice, courage, acceptance of pain and suffering, of the unknown, of doubt and uncertainty. An untrodden path is being demanded from you, and no one ever walked it before. No one can tell you what to do. It's only you and it. You and the invisible that calls you forth. You can no longer live to adapt and thrive in the existing system of rules. You can no longer live to achieve, to be approved, to become what makes sense to others. The life that you spend so much time and energy building up to this painful point in your life no longer makes sense or feel right. It comes as restlessness, as anxiety, as depression, as the feeling that something is missing, even though you may have all that you wished for. A troubling, confusing, and stubborn question rises from the depths of your soul. What am I for? The star is your unique destiny, your immortal kernel, your deeper center, and when it falls on your back, it is a heavy burden. The great self does not arrive as comfort, it arrives as a necessity. The burden of having to become yourself means that you can no longer live only as the persona you've built. You can no longer be safe by fulfilling collective roles. You can no longer serve only the spirit of the time. Something in you tells you, maybe for the first time in your life, that you are an irreplaceable expression of nature, made to be expressed in its fullness. That means that all that is false, fake, inauthentic must die, and you must be reborn in your own image. When this is ignored, life becomes thin, empty, miserable, and this push does not disappear by running away from it, numbing it, by reaching with all you have toward relief. This is the stage where the soul is missing. And when the soul is missing, you don't feel like a human being. You feel like a function. The star humiliates the ego. It does not praise your image. It says, enough. It says that it is time for the real work. Now you must build a conscious relationship with the center, with the source of meaning, not borrowed, inherited, or comfortable meaning. The meaning that belongs to your deep nature. This is why this stage feels lonely, because the self does not give collective solutions. It gives an individual path. It asks you to slow down, observe, and listen. To acknowledge that you've built a life that isn't yours. Your dream life flourishes here because the psyche is trying to orient you, to offer consolations on this terribly difficult stage in your development, to say to you that you are not truly alone. You are in its presence, always. What stops you from becoming conscious of it is your desperate need for control, your fear of not being the center, the flight from surrendering to something much larger than yourself. The symptoms, although they might be terrible, are carrying a message, a map. They point to where you are blind, one-sided, inflated, inauthentic, avoidant. Ignoring them or fighting them, as putting bandages on a deep cut, won't change a thing. They demand your full attention, your true intention, to listen and become the individual you are meant to become. What am I for? Stay with that question. It is the doorway, the beginning of a new stage in your life, a potential for more truth, meaning, and depth. And if you have the patience and courage, answers will come. Trust that no matter how difficult, confusing, and alone you feel where you are now, you are not alone. And if you listen with honesty, you can already hear what the soul is asking of you.